A new challenger has approached in the Bambu Lab AGPL debacle. We have the Software Freedom Conservancy here who are stepping up to take over a formal investigation into Bambu's alleged violations of the AGPL code, the Pawel issue, just everything associated with it. They love open source. This is their thing. And already they have found violations inside of the code. To be clear, we kind of expected this. Even if you want to think that Bambu was 100% malicious, it is so easy to accidentally forget to publish certain code. But understanding the violations is key so that companies can fix it. And to be clear, from my perspective, Bambu is the first in a whole list of companies that need, let's go with the dreaded A term in business, an audit about what they're doing with open source and whether or not they're compliant. And if they're not, let's keep them honest, because this isn't a tirade against Bambu Lab. This isn't just everybody jumping in and punching at them. It is ensuring the start of other companies also following the rules. And if we look at objectively the biggest player in the game, they have the highest chance of being a problem creator. But the Software Freedom Conservancy doesn't stop there. They're not just digging into what AGPL violations do exist, they're also working on the Pawel versus Bambu problem. And well, they're launching the Bambu project. And because Bambu's not following the rules, they're saying, okay, welcome to the world of open source, where if you don't follow the rules, we will make you follow the rules. This project contains certain repositories. The reverse networking repository hosts a project of reverse engineer libbambu_networking.so, their DLL, and their dylib sources. Because as they've explained in the past, object code combined with AGPL v3 software must also be licensed as AGPL 3, and as such, these object code libraries are governed by this AGPL v3. And if you're wondering what AGPL is, this is what it stands for. The vast understanding that you need to have for this is that if you use open source in any way on your project, that part of your project is also open source according to the open source code. So the SFC and their volunteers are within their rights to reverse engineer these libraries for the purpose of creating their own source code that can function as a drop-in replacement for Bambu Studio. The open source community is full of people that get way more upset than I do. And they have a tendency to say, you sure you want to do that? You sure about that?
You sure about that? You sure about that?
And when the companies say, yeah, we're totally sure, they're like, it's your funeral. And they just go and reverse engineer it anyways. Because if you're not following the rules, it is difficult to enforce them. But what's not difficult to do is just reverse engineer it yourself, publish the code, and let everybody else figure it out. That's how open source works. They go on to say if Bambu Studio were not known to be a strident, long-term AGPL v3 violator, we would not begin with this approach. But we believe the reverse engineering effort will yield results more quickly than legal action possibly can. And I have to agree. As we've discussed before on the channel, the only people that win in legal action are the lawyers. Even if you win, you will lose money because your time has value and often you're not going to be able to recuperate those costs. They're also doing the Bambu's OrcaSlicer for Bambu repository, which will build on Pawel's work to become a canonical repository for maintaining and improving the OrcaSlicer fork that Pawel originally published. According to the SFC, they don't fear Bambu Lab's aggression, and they welcome volunteers to join in maintaining the OrcaSlicer fork that works for Bambu Lab 3D printers. And volunteer contributors working on SFC's behalf have some amount of personal liability protection, and the SFC does their best to insert themselves should Bambu make legal threats to any of our volunteers. And to be clear, as Rossman said, there are two fundamental rules in life. Rule number one is don't be a dick. Rule number two is if you're going to be a dick, be a big one. Bambu chose rule number two. They tried to paint themselves once again as the victim. It did a very poor job coming across to the, I would say, the community that actually cares. Their own consumers are kind of split right now. We're seeing a lot of people saying, I really just don't give a damn. I just want to make my parts. And some of the community saying, I knew they were evil the whole time. My initial thought on all this was that Bambu Lab was just dumb. They weren't malicious. No, they're absolutely malicious. Okay, to be clear, this is malicious in my personal opinion. The problem that I see here is all Bambu really needs to do is just change the way that their authentication system works in their cloud, and it does kind of stop this the way that it is currently, but it doesn't stop the push for making sure that Bambu, and hopefully other companies in the future, maintain proper open source. You guys are standing up high so you can see far upon the shoulders of giants of open source. The names of such include Richard Horn and Adrian Boyer, and they are the reason that we are here today. If you want us to get Adrian Boyer, even Richard Horn, on a podcast to talk about this stuff, let me know. I would love to do it, but I want to know if you guys want to see it as well. Let us know in those comments. But the SFC is also launching a standing committee to discuss software freedom and rights in the 3D printer community. Details on the committee are going to be coming in June 2026. I am hoping that we can work with the SFC on this. I've been doing 3D printing for 18 years. I am considered a subject matter expert by US Navy SOCOM, things that we don't really talk about much on this channel, but we have been building printers ourselves and using off-the-shelf machines for almost 20 years. And I got a bit of experience. Not saying I'm anywhere near as good as someone like Richard, Adrian, but certainly I'd like to call myself an advocate for the consumers right now. And you might be saying, Grant, this is great and all, but what the hell can I do? SFC is collecting money. They are looking for $250,000 and $7. I'm sure there's a reason for the $7. I don't know what it is, and I appreciate them being very specific about that number. As of recording this video, they have raised a little over $94,000 of those dollars. And unfortunately, we are seeing a lot of astroturfing occurring right now online regarding Bambu, the A1, the SFC. People are saying that the SFC is just raising money to line their pockets. There are people that have been applying blowtorches to their A1s that firmly do not understand the way that fire retardant plastics work. If you guys do want to see a little display of that, let me know. We have actual fire retardant rated ABS plastic here. It's UL94V0. So if you do want to see that stuff, let me know. We, along with Gamers Nexus and hopefully Louis Rossman, are collecting burned A1 boards, of which this is one of them, to work down that path. We're going to cover all costs associated with it. There's a little bit more detail and description if you do have information. Whether you believe in open source or not, and I understand a lot of you don't care about open source, this does matter. This is breaking the fundamental principles of which this industry is built upon. And without open source, Bambu Lab would not exist to the extent that it does today, and certainly no other 3D printer manufacturer would either, including their biggest, I would say, online competitor, Prusa Research. Prusa is built upon the shoulders of open source. Most of the machines you see behind me are fully open source. You can download any single part of them, print it out. You can even download the Gerber files if you wanted. And we can see here that Paweł has also done a fair bit of work on his side too. He's updated his GitHub, which we will of course link. You guys know where to find it. All the information, evidence, and data that he has collected. Paweł, it has been amazing talking to you. Thank you for understanding that the fight does need you, and we are so glad that you are on the side of the makers for this. And we can see from the SFC that Paweł has agreed to collaborate with the SFC on the efforts, which is awesome. Paweł is, no offense to him, a no-name developer from Poland who just found open source code and used it. Bambu Lab got mad at him, threatened him with a cease and desist letter, and then told him not to publish any of this publicly. And he said, yeah, no, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna go ahead and publish it publicly. Open source champions like Gamers Nexus, Jeff Geerling, Louis Rossman, and Lawful Masses have all joined this fight in support of the David versus the Goliath of Bambu Lab. I could not be happier. It warms my heart to see others joining the fight that we have been fighting for over a year in trying to keep Bambu Lab as honest as possible. But to be clear, we're not stopping with them. Here at 3D Musketeers, everybody else is going under the microscope as well. We're going to set some precedent here, or do our best to set some precedent, and then we're going to use that precedent to apply pressure to other companies who are found to be in violation as well. So those of you who are watching this that happen to work for other 3D printer manufacturers, I highly recommend at this moment that you guys have someone go through your open source repositories and get them fixed up. You don't want this kind of PR. This is effectively the best warning that you can be given. Let the big guy take the brunt for it when inevitably you go under the microscope next. Be able to provide a clean slate. If you do want to read the entire press release from the SFC, we'll link to it below, along with Pawel's entire GitHub repository for this. And those of you that have gone to Fulu or gone to Gamers Nexus and forked this thousands and thousands of times, thank you. This is open source working the way that it should. We are going to try our best to cover this as much as possible as it continues and as these things develop. So if you do have any questions or comments about it, please leave them below. But a huge thank you goes out to all of our channel member supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Remember, if you do want to support the efforts that we do here, you could do so by joining for as little as $1 a month. And at the $10 tier and higher, you get to come hang out in our super secret Discord, where you get to see a lot of this stuff way before it goes live on the channel. That is all we have for you all today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. Remember that open source matters. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one.